Well, good afternoon. This is a process that we go through in city government. I've always bragged about how good city government is compared to the federal and state levels because we actually have hearings on every bill. Our city council people generally read every bill. They know exactly what they're voting for. They hold hearings, they talk about it, and then we have a public hearing, and I read them. And then I listen to comments, and a couple times, much to my staff's annoyance, I have said I want to think about that, or no, I'm not going to, you've changed my mind. It's happened a couple times, even in the bill that we sponsored, so, whoops. Anyways, we have 8 bills today. The first 4 of 8 bills before us today concern the use of bicycles for commercial purposes. Existing law already requires that operators of bicycles used for commercial purposes are properly identified and kept safe. The following bills we think will further ensure the safety of operators and those who traverse the city streets and sidewalks. Introductory number 683A, sponsored by Council members Van Bremer, Ferraris, Gentili, James Capel, Koslowitz, Rose, Williams, Nelson, Greenfield, Koo, Brewer, Garodnick, Lappin, Rodriguez, Barron, Crowley, Dickens, Gennaro, and Jackson require reflective apparel for commercial cyclists, which will help make them more visible to pedestrians, especially at night. In addition, the bill requires that the reflective apparel identify the business on whose behalf the operator is making deliveries, which will assist the public in holding the businesses accountable if its operators do not comply with traffic laws while making deliveries. And I might point out also, if I were a business guy, I would want to do that because it tells me who delivers in the neighborhood. And, you know, I see pizza going to somebody's house. I'd love a pizza. What do I do? Call the guy. I know that they know how to get to where I am. Introductory number 783A, sponsored by Council members Vaca, Ferraris, Gentili, Jackson, James, Koo, Koslowitz, Mendez, Van Bremer, Williams, Rodriguez, Brewer, Capel, Rose, Garodnick, Lappin, Barron, Crowley, Dickens, Eugenie, and Gennaro require that commercial cyclists complete a bicycle safety course provided by the Department of Transportation prior to operating a bicycle on behalf of the business. Introductory number 896A, sponsored by Council members Brewer, Vaca, Garodnick, Lappin, Chin, Comrie, Gentili, Koo, Capel, Koslowitz, Mendez, Rose, Rodriguez, Van Bremer, Barron, Crowley, Dickens, Jackson, Williams, and Gennaro gives the Transportation Department the authority to enforce provisions of the commercial cycling law in addition to the police department and any other person authorized by law. Finally, introductory number 910A, sponsored by Council members Vaca, Brewer, Garodnick, Lappin, Chin, Koo, Koslowitz, Mendez, Wills, Rodriguez, Van Bremer, Capel, Dickens, Gennaro, Gentili, Jackson, and Williams, strengthens enforcement against commercial cyclists. Specifically, the bill revises identification requirements for commercial cyclists, requiring businesses to keep a roster of cyclists employed, and adds a civil penalty in addition to the existing criminal penalty for violating the law. And I wish to thank the Department of Transportation Commissioner Jeanette Sedek-Khan, Assistant Commissioner Kate Slevin, Police Commissioner Ray Kelly, and their staffs for work on this bill, along with my Office of City Legislative Affairs. I'd also like to thank the City Council for approving this legislation. I've got to pick between you and you ladies first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank Speaker Quinn. I really want to thank the wonderful Chair of Transportation, Councilmember Baca, and my colleagues, Grodnick, Lappin, and Van Bremer, and Lyle Frank, who's the counsel to the committee, who puts all the drafting together. My piece is the bill that would provide the Department of Transportation with the enforcement powers to regulate commercial biking provisions. And why this is so exciting is it takes the individuals who would normally perhaps not be doing the kinds of enforcement. It takes 6 people from the Department of Transportation. They have wonderful yellow shirts and badges, and they're very committed. I've gone restaurant to restaurant to restaurant with them personally. And they are talking and educating people about the cycling laws. And now, in January, people will be educated, and then they will get summons if they don't have a bell and a whistle and a vest and helmets. And their safety is at stake. Pedestrian safety is at stake in the whole city. And I think it's a very exciting, innovative program. With the chair of the committee, we stood, for instance, with a wonderful store, Lenny's. Lenny's has the good kind of oversight, in my opinion, in our neighborhood anyway, and they are going around with vests and helmets and bells and lights, and people can see them, and they have the name of the restaurant as the mayor indicated advertising. So working with the police, because the police will still continue to work on rules of the road, I think we'll have safer streets because of this wonderful package of laws. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome, John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and of course I thank my colleague, Councilmember Brewer. I want to say that I think these laws mean that we're finally getting a hold of a problem which our city has endured for a long time, and it's been serious in nature, and that is commercial bicycling. And many who use bicycles for commercial purposes really not obeying the rules of the road. They go the wrong way on one-way streets, and then they go through red lights, and they're on sidewalks, and people are often petrified because they've been turned around on sidewalks and turned around in crosswalks as they try to navigate as pedestrians the streets of our city. So the legislation that the mayor, I hope, will be signing today will take for the first time a civil route in trying to bring reason to this whole process. The laws we've had on the books since the 1980s have been criminal in nature, and those laws really are hard to enforce, and they don't often apply to many of those who don't obey the rules of the road. What does apply, though, is that people who employ them have an obligation to make sure that those vests are worn and the bells are in place on the bicycles, and that all the safety measures our city requires are in place for those that they employ. And this does put the onus there after we have a community education component, which I know DOT is working on. And I thank them for their help in this legislation. I thank the mayor. I think that these bills are important and put us on the right path in addressing a serious problem we have throughout the city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. We have one person that signed up to speak, Nancy Gruskin. Come right here. And anybody else that would like to speak on these 4 bills, we welcome that as well.
Thank you. On April 28th, my husband Stuart was struck and killed by a wrong-way delivery rider in Midtown. Today, 3.5 years later, we have a brand new law, Stuart's Law, which is the cycling education law, named in his memory, that requires businesses to educate their riders on the safety rules of the road. Maybe if that rider knew the rules of the road or the consequences for not following them, my husband would be here today. As a born and bred New Yorker, he loved the city and worked here every day of his working life. So I can't think of a better legacy for Stuart to leave than this law can go a long way in helping to ensure the safety of all New Yorkers. Thank you to Mayor Bloomberg, Councilman Vaca, Lyle Frank, and the entire council for making this law a reality. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else like to speak? If not, I'll sign the 4 bills. Today's the 25th?
Today's the 25th.
Okay, the next bill before us today is introductory number 733A, sponsored by Council Members Sanders, Cabrera, Comrie, James, Mealy, Williams, Arroyo, Rose, and Gennaro. Introductory number 733A expands the boundaries of the Far Rockaway Empire Zone within the Borough of Queens. The Empire Zone program is a New York State program that was designed to attract new businesses to New York and enable existing businesses to expand and create jobs through a mix of state tax credits. The boundary amendment will add 54.9 acres of contiguous land to the zone, which will allow for the continued progress of the Auvergne by the Sea development. This redevelopment includes the installation of new public infrastructure, a new supermarket, a 22,000 square foot retail transit plaza, a new 45,000 square foot YMCA community center, and approximately 2,300 middle-income units of housing. By extending the current Empire Zone, we will help generate significant economic activity throughout Far Rockaway through hundreds of construction, retail, and commercial employment opportunities. And I would like to thank Small Business Services Commissioner Rob Walsh and his staff for their work on this bill, along with my Office of City Legislative Affairs and the City Council for approving this legislation. Councilwoman, you want to add anything? Sorry? Would anybody like to add anything? If not, I will sign the bill. I actually flew over it recently. It's really amazing.
Quite a development. And it's growing.
The final three bills before us today concern the city's Human Resources Administration and its interaction with young people who are on or are seeking public assistance. We can all agree that young persons need the support and care of a parent or responsible adult, although there are situations when that is not the case. Unfortunately, some of these young people may find themselves in need of government assistance. Introductory number 648A, sponsored by Council Members Brewer, Palmer, Chin, Fiddler, James, Koslowitz, Lander, Levin, Mendez, Van, Williams, Nelson, Rodriguez, Barron, Foster, Mark Viverito, Gonzalez, Garodnik, Van Bremer, Vaca, Arroyo, Rose, Drum, Lappin, Dickens, Eugenie, Gennaro, Jackson, Mealy, and Halloran require HRA and the Department of Youth and Community Development to post a, quote, frequently asked questions, unquote, page on their respective websites outlining the rights and options available to young people should they find themselves in need of public assistance. Introductory number 649A, sponsored by Council Members Fiddler, Palmer, Brewer, Chin, Drum, Gonzalez, James, Koslowitz, Lander, Levin, Mendez, Van, Williams, Mark Viverito, Foster, Rodriguez, Nelson, Barron, Garodnik, Van Bremer, Jackson, Vaca, Arroyo, Rose, Lappin, Dickens, Eugenie, Gennaro, Mealy, and Halloran require HRA to submit a report to the council outlining how individuals under the age of 25 receiving public assistance are engaged and served. Introductory number 657A, sponsored by Council Members Palmer, Fiddler, Brewer, Chin, Gonzalez, James, Koslowitz, Lander, Levin, Mendez, Recchia, Van, Williams, Mark Viverito, Rodriguez, Nelson, Barron, Foster, Capel, Garodnik, Jackson, Vaca, Arroyo, Van Bremer, Rose, Drum, Lappin, Gennaro, Mealy, and Halloran require HRA to report monthly on the engagement status of public assistance recipients under the age of 25, disaggregated by several criteria, including age and level of education. Additionally, HRA must report semi-annually on the number of young people ages 16 to 20 who apply for public assistance, and from that, how many were accepted and how many were rejected. And I'd like to thank the HRA Commissioner Robert Dorr and his staff for work on this bill, along with my Office of Legislative Affairs and the City Council for approving this bill. Would you like to say something?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank Speaker Quinn and certainly General Welfare Chair Annabelle Palmer, and certainly Councilmember Fiddler, who's chair of the Youth Committee. Annabelle heads General Welfare. But the real heroes are here in this room. The inspiration for this legislation was a report by the Community Service Society on how our city can do a better job of assisting young people on public assistance, those who want to get on. And this great report, which was written by Lazar Treshan, who's right there, as well as Brooke Ritchie Bavich. Lazar is from CSS, and Brooke is head of the Resilience Advocacy Project. And they brought their concerns to the General Welfare Committee. I happened to be chairing that day only because Annabelle could not, and it was a great honor. And out of this report and out of this hearing came this package of legislation, which we are hearing about today and which we've heard and made into, hopefully, a better life for the young people. It's an example of how the legislative process is supposed to work. Young people who qualify for public assistance should not face additional barriers to accessing these services. And this bill will help young people toward that road to financial and personal independence, provide them with answers through my bill, which has frequently asked questions, which will be up on the web. And I think this is a population that may be hesitant to seek out help in person, but providing the information online, because they are online, we will hopefully reach many more young people who need the city's support. And I certainly want to thank the Human Resources Administration, because they were very instrumental. It took a little while to have them come around, but they certainly did. And I want to thank Alex Botasnik, Molly Murphy, Liz Hoffman, and I think Crystal Keston, who's also here today, Costin, and all the people who made this possible. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome, Jimmy. Would anybody like to add anything? Yes, go ahead. Just introduce yourself.
My name's Lazar Tresjon from the Community Service Society. I'll let Brooke speak in a second. A little over a year ago, we put out this report after speaking over 100 young people on very cold days coming outside of HRA job centers. And we're really excited to see the commitment of the mayor and the really hard work of the council in making sure that young people who are in crisis don't have to give up the chance to get a GED if they didn't finish high school just because they want to get public assistance, and are able to get back on track and fulfill their potential. So thanks to the mayor, to HRA, and to the council for their hard work in making this happen.
Hi, thank you. My name is Brooke Ritchie-Babbage. I'm the Executive Director of the Resilience Advocacy Project. It was an honor to work with the council and HRA and the mayor's office on these bills, and I want to reiterate what Lazar said about really strengthening the city's infrastructure on behalf of its most vulnerable young people. And I want to just highlight the collaboration that these bills took. It's been a little over a year and a half, I would think summer of last year, that we've been working on this, and the hard work and willingness to compromise and negotiate that between the council and the city and HRA was really phenomenal to see, and very exciting. So we thank you, and it was wonderful working with you.
Anybody else? If not, I'll sign the 3 bills.